Hey guys, it's Chillpill.
And this is Tatter.
And
Happy New Year! 2018 was a big year for games. Between God of War, Dragon Quest XI, and Smash Bros. Ultimate, it is hard to believe we got anything else done last year. Of course, with the new year comes the promise of exciting new game releases, and we are just as stoked as the next gamer for titles like Kingdom Hearts 3, Devil May Cry 5, and the Resident Evil 2 remake.
But let's not dive into 2019 without first taking a look at all the incredible indies that released last year, and holy crap was 2018 an amazing year for indie games. In fact, indies took home an astonishing 7 wins at the 2018 Game Awards, some even winning over the likes of God of War and Far Cry 5. With so many incredible games, there were some rough decisions to make, but we eventually came up with a list we feel deserved to be recognized as top dogs. So, without further ado, here are our top 10 indie games of 2018.
Here we go!
Our first game on this list actually came as a bit of a surprise. We thought Donut County would be nothing more than a cute, quick little puzzle game that we'd lose interest in quickly. Turns out it was actually a cute, quick little puzzle game that had us constantly grinning and glued to the screen for the entire 2-hour playtime. Donut County has a quirky sense of humor and a lighthearted story about a bored raccoon donut shop owner who ends up destroying the town with a game app one customer at a time. You play the game by controlling a hole in the ground that gradually increases in size the more objects you cause to fall into it, much like the Katamari game's ever-increasing ball, but more bite-sized. We could not get enough of slowly swallowing up this little town one helpless animal at a time, and seeing as Donut County is also available as a mobile game, we recommend you donut delay to give the game a go. VR is an exciting new gaming technology, but it seems that most of the game options so far are just AAA ports or doofy simulators. And then there was Moss, an adventure game about a mouse on a quest to rescue her uncle from evil creatures bent on gaining ultimate power. This tale features Quill, a little mouseketeer with a sweet green sword and a trusty no-face looking sidekick, you. You're able to reach into the world to grab items, enemies, and even Quill to help her solve puzzles and give her a hand in defeating baddies, which made for a level of immersion that was amazing to experience. There are some issues with the motion controls and the story's ending, but they were pretty minor in the grand scheme of things. But I did do a full review of this game back in May if you want to know more about that. Regardless of these issues, I instantly fell in love with Moss's beautiful world, unique gameplay, and incredibly cute protagonist. I mean, come on, who could say no to this face?
Listen!
One of my favorite things about indie games is the way they're able to use incredibly beautiful stylized art and open-ended visual storytelling to create a unique and memorable adventure. And Grist is a perfect example of that. In Grist, you play as a girl who's dealing with painful loss, who must venture out to rediscover herself and grow, which is represented by gradually gaining new abilities and bringing color back into the world. The game's 2D platforming is simple enough to not frustrate, but also requires a bit of thought that keeps the gameplay from being too boring. Plus, there's no threat of death, so you're never punished for your lack of skills. This allows you to sit back and revel in the game's breathtaking beauty, which is easily the game's biggest success. Grist is heavily inspired by Journey, and it shows. The incredible watercolor art and gorgeous sound design come together to create an experience that is quite simply a masterpiece. If you've not yet picked this one up, do it now, no matter what.
– 2018 was a great year for Metroidvanias, but there was one in particular that really caught my eye. At a glance, you might think of The Messenger as just another 8-bit NES homage designed to evoke nostalgia in 80s and 90s kids, and you may be right. But if retro gaming isn't your thing, you still shouldn't pass this one up, because believe me, this game is so much more than a mere throwback to the OG Ninja Gaiden series. The music is fresh and sounds unlike any chiptune soundtrack I've ever heard. The writing and story are surprisingly robust with plenty of hilarious character interactions sprinkled in, and just when you think the already impressive pixel art couldn't look any better, you step into a time portal and BAM! The game gets SNESified. However, the Messenger's best feature is definitely how versatile and smooth the controls feel, and the addition of the Cloud Step adds a whole new layer of fun to the game's challenging platforming. The only real issue I have is the back half of the Messenger is fairly padded with lots of backtracking to advance the story, but having heard similar complaints in several other reviews, it doesn't seem to be that unpopular of an opinion, so hopefully the devs will get the message and avoid this one shortcoming when they start making the inevitable sequel.
were to describe a game as being a 2D platformer with pixel art and a chiptune soundtrack, I could be talking about any number of an ocean's worth of indie titles. But Iconoclast is one game that definitely stands out from the masses. This game's art is vibrant and surprisingly detailed. The soundtrack is catchy with tons of variety, and the world is chock full of weapon upgrades, creative enemy designs, and challenging puzzles to keep the gameplay fresh. Not to mention, the story of a young female mechanic rebelling against the ruling religious class is incredibly unique. And to top it all off, absolutely everything in the game, from the art to the music to the programming, was all done by just one guy. That is crazy impressive! Chillpill did an in-depth review on the game earlier this year, and he even said it was good enough to be compared to indie greats like Shovel Knight and Owlboy. I guess you could say this game dev hit the mother lode with Iconoclasts.
When I first dove into Subnautica's crystal blue waters, the sheer vastness of the game's gorgeous seascape filled me with a sense of wonder. Then I found out you run into things like this later on, and my pants filled with something a little less wonderful. Normally, even thinking about what might be lurking below my dangly little feet in the murky depths gives me a big old case of the nopes. But man, am I glad I gave this game a try, because Subnautica is probably the most fun survival game I've played since Don't Starve. The world's sprawling seabed is full of creatures to discover and mysteries to explore. The crafting system is intuitive and addictive. The synth-heavy Metroid Prime-esque music perfectly complements the game's overall enigmatic atmosphere, and the survival mechanics are integrated in a way that feels organic to the overarching Escape the Planet narrative. Hell, I didn't even bother to progress the story most of the time. I had more fun just swimming around, pretending to be the French narrator from SpongeBob as I documented all the weird fish I came across. Because I'm a man who knows how to use his free time wisely. So, if Subnautical nonsense be something you wish, then boot up your PC and, buy this game.
Do a barrel roll!
I'm always a bit skeptical whenever I hear that a new game described as Souls-like is coming out due to how often people misuse the term as a gauge of difficulty instead of a game's likeness to the Soulsborne series. But not since Salt and Sanctuary have I played an indie that embodies the title so well. Ashen is a third-person action RPG that follows your faceless protagonist as they try to protect the newly illuminated world from encroaching forces that seek to envelop everything in darkness once again. The game's minimalistic art style gives the world and characters in Ashen a beautifully clean and unique aesthetic. The gameplay checks off many of the standard Souls-like mechanics boxes, and I was pleasantly surprised to hear background music play in non-boss fight areas instead of a typical Soulsborne silence. Die-hard Souls veterans might argue that Ashen is more of a Souls-light. I prefer the term dim Souls myself, due to the inability to truly customize character class, combat being too simplistic, and constantly having an AI or player-controlled character tethered to you wherever you go. But I feel like these factors make the game much more approachable to newcomers who are always intimidated by the challenge Dark Souls presented. So, if you've been wanting to take a stab at the Soulsborne games, Ashen may be just the thing to get you started.
When I was little, I didn't have as much access to video games as most of y'all did. But one game that always intrigued me was Myst. My stepdad was obsessed with the game, so naturally I wanted to play it too. So when I heard Return of the Obra Dinn had all the makings of a game reminiscent of Myst, I knew I had to give it a try. And holy poop deck was I blown away! The game takes place on the Obra Dinn, a merchant ship that had gone missing for 5 years until it mysteriously drifted back to shore completely empty of its crew, and you are now tasked with investigating what happened. The striking art style may have been what initially roped me in, but the game mechanic of looking back in time to determine a corpse's identity and cause of death is what had me hooked. When I first picked this up, I only intended on playing for an hour or so, but I got so engrossed in solving the mystery of the Obra Dinn that I didn't put the controller down for another 8 hours straight. I just couldn't help myself. I had to figure out the fates of all 60 of those poor lost souls. Seriously, if you like logic puzzles and murder mysteries, we highly recommend Return of the Obra Dinn. You will not regret it.
Hadouken!
After being in early access for well over a year, Dead Cells finally got its full release this past August and was met with tons of well-deserved praise from gamers and critics alike. Dead Cells was definitely one of the best games I played in 2018 and quickly became one of my favorite go-to games for whenever I needed short bursts of entertainment. Shoutouts for making my already too long bathroom breaks even longer. In this roguelite Metroidvania, or Roguevania, you play as the Prisoner, a sentient glob of gelatinous cells capable of possessing the discarded remains of dead inmates as a means of escaping the massive island prison that holds him, or it, I suppose, captive. As you explore the labyrinthine confines of the island, you'll pick up cells when you defeat enemies or discover treasure vaults that can be used to buy permanent upgrades which can help make your subsequent runs longer and more profitable. Be careful though, because if you die, you'll lose them all and it's back to the start for you. This constant cycle of explore, upgrade, die, repeat in combination with the insanely diverse and smooth combat is what makes Dead Cells so addictive and fun. If you're looking for a game that's perfect for pickup and put down play sessions, then you can't go wrong with this one, because amazingly polished and engrossing games like this are seldomly released.
Before we reveal our top pick, let's take a quick look at some honorable mentions.
Bloodstained, Curse of the Moon. Maybe there's something we can all learn from, well,
When Ryder and I were debating which game should be on this list and where, there was one game that we both knew deserved to be number one from the very start. Celeste is a precision platformer that follows a young woman named Madeline who is determined to climb a mountain just to prove to herself that she can. The game's narrative delivers a strong message about moving past your mistakes and finding the courage to overcome your inner demons, which is some pretty intense subject matter for a dev team whose last game was all about shooting your friends in the face with arrows. Approaching touchy subjects like depression and anxiety can come across as ham-fisted if handled poorly, but the Celeste devs did a fantastic job in organically incorporating these themes into the game's story, music, and gameplay. While the ambitious narrative was one of the most prominent reasons why Celeste was our top pick this year, it wasn't the sole reason. The chiptune synthwave soundtrack is easily some of the most heartfelt and beautiful music of the year, the visuals and sprite art are simple yet vibrant and memorable, and then there's the gameplay. Holy crap! The platforming on the early levels is fairly simple, but as you climb further up the mountain, figuring out how to use environmental factors to clear the screens, or, if you're skilled enough, collect strawberries gets to be extremely challenging. And if that wasn't enough, you can unlock B-sides and C-sides for even harder remixes of the originals. Never thought the day would come that I would lose my shit over not being able to grab a piece of frickin' fruit, but this game broke me. Once I started playing Celeste, I couldn't put it down. It was just so much fun, and as someone who has also had to deal with my own depression and anxiety, the story resonated with me way more than most games I've ever played. Ryder and I were so happy to see Team Matt Makes Games win Best Independent Game at the 2018 Game Awards because we completely agree. There was no one more deserving of that title than this small team of devs and their plucky little mountain climbing redhead.
Wow, what a year! Thanks so much for checking out our top 10 indie games of 2018. If you enjoyed our list, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more indie action every week. And if there's any games we missed, we'd love to hear about them. Question for you: what indies are you most excited to see release in 2019? Let us know in the comments below, and we'll see y'all next time.